There are some other materials over here. These were emailed to you, but if you want paper copies, there are some over there. So just to start off, I'm going to do a call to order. So we will go ahead and take roll call, and I will go ahead and do that for you, Tammy, and you can just take notes. So Murphy Lopez, Frank, here, Cosgrove, Joyce, Kaplan,
Yes.
Hari, Linz, yep, Thompson, and Poole. Okay, we have 9 out of 9 of you present, so we do have a quorum. Thank you all for agreeing to be part of the committee and serving the county in this capacity. Item number 2 on the agenda is proof of notification. So I, as County Clerk Kalish, will confirm that the meeting was properly noticed. So moving on to number 3, you can see for the agenda, we have a 10-point agenda. I will take a motion to approve the agenda. Poole, first by Poole, a second. Thompson, second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. None. The motion carries. We have an approved agenda. Item number 4 on the agenda is the election of a chairperson and vice chairperson. So at this point, to elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson, we'll do this via voice vote. I will take a nomination from someone on the floor to be the chair of the redistricting committee. Is there a nomination on the floor for someone to assume the chair of the committee?
Can you please use your mic, because we do have online. Come up. I have to wait for it to connect. Go ahead.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a first by Cosgrove and a second by Hari to make Bob Frank the chair of the committee. I'll ask for any other nominations 3 times. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Bob Frank being the chair for this committee, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. None. Motion carries. Bob Frank, you are the official chair for the committee. At this point, I will hand over the agenda for you to lead for the vice chair and carry out the rest of the agenda as the chair. Is that okay, sir?
That is fine. Thank you, Derek.
Yes, thank you.
So we were looking for nomination for the vice chair. For nomination for the vice chair, the vice chair will sit in place chair if they can't make it, and also other discussions or things that may go on in preparing for meetings. So I'm looking for nominations at this point for a vice chair.
And Sean says vice chair.
I'm looking for a second for Sean Murphy Lopez. Can you say your name, please, into the mic? So, thank you. Great. Looking for nominations. I'm going to ask 3 times. Any other nominations for the vice chair? Any other nominations for the vice chair? Going twice. Going 3 times. Any other nominations for the vice chair? Going, gone. Looking for all in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Same sign. All right. Very good. Moving on. Discussion and overview of the redistricting process and timelines. Derek, I've got a 9-point agenda. I may be missing 1 item on here. I'll have to look it up as we're talking, but I'll get to it. If I miss something, let me know. Discussion and possible action for the redistricting purpose and timelines, item number 5. Where do we want to start with that? Derek?
Okay, so as you're all aware, the redistricting happens every 10 years as the census is completed. So the census in this year is particularly a little wonky because COVID has kind of pushed everything back. So this process usually starts in January. So we're a little behind schedule just because numbers were just released on August 15th. I think the numbers came in on a Saturday when, we were all away from the office. So nonetheless, that's why the committee was formed at the last board meeting, and we're here to do this today. So that being said, this timeline is usually composed of 3 different blocks of time. So a 60-month block, another 60-month block, or 60-day block, and then another 60-day block. So the process is typically about 180 days. Those are the standard deadlines. Those dates can move up as you kind of complete steps as you go, but For us, we don't have that luxury simply because on November 23rd, the county clerk has to publish a Class A notice, a Type A notice, which informs the electorate of the upcoming spring election for county board supervisors. So that being said, that's a hard deadline that we can't change, friends. As much as it's kind of difficult, it is what it is, and we have to work with the parameters we have. So just to give you an overview of the timeline, I did send you all a proposed timeline this morning or whenever, sometime today. So if you have that, look at it. If you don't, I did print copies off to put them down there. So
Does anybody need a copy?
So we'll go over this timeline and then we'll talk about kind of, what we have to do within this timeline. But I thought it was important to go over this timeline with you first so you have an idea of the flavor of what we're going to have to do as a committee. Again, you will all have to move quickly on this, or briskly anyway, because again, we can't stop time, and November 23rd is coming whether we like it or not. So starting at the top, I have August 26th, that's today, right? That's our first redistricting committee meeting. Underneath that, I have major action items. Some of the items that I would like to see come out of this meeting tonight are us setting the date for 2 public hearings, one of which to adopt the tentative plan that is then shared with municipalities, and the last to adopt the final plan, which is how our county board supervisory districts are set to be then approved by the county board. So you folks as a redistricting committee will put these suggestions together and then forward them as a recommendation for the county board to ultimately approve at the end of the day, okay? So that's what needs to happen today. Luckily, I've kind of went through and mapped this out for us, for you guys to consider. The schedule that I have before you, again, allows us to accomplish the task of getting this plan done by the statutory deadline of November 23rd, and does allow for, us to meet a few different times. So August 26th is today. You know what we need to do today. September 2nd, 9th, and 16th, you're going to see it says notice of public hearing to adopt the tentative plan is published. I have to adopt that plan it has to be published 3 weeks, 3 insertions in our local paper. So that would be the Observer. It has to be published 3 times. So that being said, after we leave here today and we have that date set, I'm going to send a notice to the newspaper, or I need to very soon before the end of day tomorrow to make sure I get it in there by next Thursday's deadline to have that published for those 3 weeks. So once that goes through, you'll see September 16th would be the last day that's published. We would hold our public hearing on September 20th to adopt the tentative plan. So on September 9th, I had scheduled a date in there that could be the date of our second meeting. So at that point, you folks as a committee would come together. We would share with you, what we kind of have for a tentative plan, kind of where things are, and then give us a few days, Lynn and I, a few days to adjust that before the hearing on the 20th. So if that date works, that's great. If it doesn't, we can meet a day before that or a day after that. But to meet this timeline, this is the day that's going to, I think, work the best time-wise. So we get to September 20th, which is the public hearing to adopt the tentative plan. We all come together as a group. We have a public hearing, so members of the community can come and say, here's my thought on, what you have so far. Voice or concern. It's very important for us to allow citizens to do that, right? So that's what we'll do on September 20th. On September 21st, that's the 3rd Tuesday in September, the county board will, it'll be a county board agenda item to approve the tentative plan. So as I just said, the county board has to approve these plans. So you folks will gather a resolution together, which I will help you create, to give to county board to adopt the tentative plan. So once that the tentative plan is adopted, it'll then be sent out to the municipality. So then Lynn and I do some magic on here, mostly Lynn, not me. We'll make those plans available to all the municipalities. The municipalities will then have time to review their plans, adjust them as they need to. We'll go over what that means later, but then give them back to us. So again, a normal time frame to do this is 60 days, but we don't have 60, we don't have this whole time frame. So my suggestion would be we send out those tentative plans to the municipalities on September 21, and by October 21st, they return those back to us. So once that tentative plan is sent out to the townships, villages, and cities, they look at it, they send us their plan back as the county group, county redistricting committee to look at. you guys will all look at that on, let's see. So yeah, you guys would look at that when they send that back to us. You can see I have the date there, October 21. So for you guys over there, municipalities and Bobby Ann, that's the magical date for you folks. Townships, you will, cities, villages, there are some things you may have to do in terms of passing ordinances or resolutions. If wards and things do change, I'll help you craft those, but I would direct you to the Wisconsin Towns Association for templates, or the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, Aaron, for you, for those templates, for them to help you out with that. But we can work on that together, because I understand it's a time crunch for you guys too. I get it. So at that rate, on October 28th, I had our third meeting built in as that date. So that's kind of the last day before we review our final plan and take that to the public hearing. Okay, so again, you can meet a day before that or a day after that, but not much farther after that to meet this deadline. October 21, 28, and November 4th would be the 3 insertions for the notice of the public hearing to adopt the final plan, so that we can, as that's published, we can still work on our stuff. And then September 4th, I had built in here or November 4th, I'm sorry, I had built in here as another meeting date if we needed a 4th meeting date. I don't know as though we will, but there's a date built in here if we need to meet. And that date coincides with the public hearing to adopt the final plan being held on November 8th. And then provided there's nothing too crazy with that, we will have a special board meeting in November, county board members. I know we normally don't meet in November, but to adopt this plan by the deadline, we're going to have to. It'll be a rather short agenda, so I don't think it'll be too time consuming, but nonetheless, we will meet in November. I put November 9th on here as a date for the county board. That can change a little bit because on November 8th, I have to publish that Class A notice for the spring 2022 election. I said the deadline for that is November 23rd, and that is the deadline, but that's a Tuesday for us, and our paper goes out on Thursday, so I have to have it in the Thursday before that date, which kind of pushes everything up yet another week. So this, in short, is how this is all going to happen. And you're going to notice it's like one thing after another, but that's because in order to meet the deadline, this is the flow it has to go. I did reach out to a few other county clerks today, some of which asked me to send this to them because they hadn't got this far yet. And I thought, wow. But anyway, they were in agreement with the schedule and said, Derek, we're probably going to do the same thing. So I don't think it's too far off what other people are thinking or what they're going to have to do too, because it is what it is. So does anyone have any questions about this schedule?
Questions about the schedule for Derek? I do have a question. I guess this happens once every 10 years. I guess I'd like to give an overview of, we are redistricting for what?
You're redistricting for the county board supervisory district. So the census goes out, they take their totals, they bring them back to us. They say, okay, this is the population based on census numbers of your county. So our county's number came back at 17,304. So before we were at a population of around 18,000 and something, whole numbers will say 18,000. So we've lost a few people in the last 10 years. Why we lost them, there's millions of reasons we could sit here all night and talk about, but nonetheless, we get that core number, which you will see when Lynn gives you the demo. And then the county board passed a resolution at the last board meeting that the supervisory districts will remain at 21. So that is the maximum number of districts that we can have based on our population. So if that handbook kind of spells those numbers out, if you really want to dig deeper into it, feel free. But basically what happens then is that total number returned by the census is divided by 21. And then each of your municipalities, you get that golden number of 824, I believe it was, that should be in each of those supervisory district blocks, okay? So that's how things kind of get parceled out between the different districts, if you will. So then your job as a redistricting committee is to look at the numbers that come back and move people into the districts to make those numbers within a standard deviation of 5%. So to get that number, our golden number is 824. You can go up 5% or down 5% from that to meet that standard deviation. You'll see on the chart there's a few other things like compactness and some other things on there, contiguous, if there's a different way to say it, I'm not sure. But anyway, so our goal is to get the approximate number of people all within the same district bear in mind that no district, it's impossible to have them have the exact same number, which is why we have the deviation that they allow for the 5% below and under that magical number of 824. So that's the task set before you guys, is to make those districts as even as possible. And there's ways that you can do that, and we'll show you that. Lynn will show you that software, but that's what we're doing.
Any questions about the purpose of what we're doing here? I just wanted to make it really clear that that's the supervisory districts. We still have to break it into 21. Those are kind of some of our base mandates to work with. Any questions on this so far? Okay, Eric, anything else on the agenda item at this point? Don, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was just gonna make a motion to adopt this as our schedule with the date ranges that Derek gave us for those meeting dates. You know, not necessarily September 9th, I think was his example. It could be September 8th to the 10th. So I was just gonna make a motion so that we make it official. That was on our agenda that we could adopt it if we wanted to, so.
Excellent. I think that's a great idea. So I have a motion on the floor to accept the proposed redistricting timeline that Derek did. I'm looking for a second. Wow, lots of seconds. Who'd you get down? You got a second? Okay. Yeah, okay, so I'll make sure we had somebody. Okay, very good. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Same sign. All right, so that has been adopted as our proposed redistricting timeline. Again, there is some flexibility in that, that we talked about. One day, either way.
Pretty much, that's what we got to work
Pretty
on.
much, right, the target. All right,
I guess I do have a question. One day either way, except for the public, or are you saying there's a as well?
Public hearing dates are final. They are what they are to make that work. It's just the committee meeting dates. We can move a date here and a date there, but to meet the publication requirements, those are hard dates.
clarify your question. All right,
So then we're going to carry on. Is it okay now if we have Lynn do, before we get to the redistricting guidelines, have Lynn pull up the software so you can all kind of see
Definitely.
electronically what you have paper in front of you?
please do that. Thank you.
Bottom. Into the mic, Lynn. Because the people online can't.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay,
Can hear you now.
okay, good. So on the screen here, right, it says Richland County, Garrett County. The total county population is 17,304. That's our new population as of
You gotta
2020.
speak into the mic.
I'm
Make
sorry.
it not hear you.
That's our, the new population as of 2020. And back in 2010, it was 18,101, I believe. So we've got a little bit of a different numbers to work with. So,
And the 824 that was mentioned before is 17 dollars.
that's the number, yes, that's the number that you'll come up with, that we need to get within 5% of each district. And that's 824, what that comes to. So this is what our county currently is, how it's broken up, how each supervisory district currently is. And so, like, for example, if you see on your sheet here, so the first supervisory district, which is Forest Township, basically, that's got a current deviation with the new numbers of minus 6.67. So we need to put, to get 824, we'd need to put 55 people in that supervisory district. And since the whole township is taken up now, currently, we're going to have to borrow from another township, put those people in that supervisory district to make up the 824, or within 5%. So that's our, and then the little, the numbers that you see and the boundaries, those are called blocks. And we have to take an entire block when we take one or add one or whatever. So it gets kind of difficult if you only need 55 people and your blocks are maybe 75, or, you know, so it, you know, they're all different numbers. There's some blocks in here that are 0. So it just kind of is like a puzzle to make all the districts come to within 5% of the 824. Are there any questions yet?
I'm sorry. I really like how you can see how many people are in the census blocks, and I
Right.
was wondering, will we have access to look at this later if we just want to peer over it, or not so much?
To look like what I have here or
Yes.
there? Well, you should be able to do that. I mean, is that what you're coming up with?
That's what I'm wondering about,
You
yes.
should be able to see that.
Okay,
yeah.
when I just go in as myself.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where would I go to see that? Since I'm not on the county.
You would have to, we could give a password to any plans that we come up with. We can give a password to anybody that we want to.
Okay.
If you want to see a particular plan,
Is there a way to get a hard copy of that?
you have,
That's here, but it doesn't have the numbers on it.
Well, this doesn't have the.
Right, if we can get copies of that, I think that'd be very helpful with the numbers on it.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we can share this stuff, but just remember, like, when you try to print this off with that much detail, it's not always easy to see. So we can try to print that off. I just don't know how much you're actually, we'll try. I just don't know how it's gonna like translate.
If it's easier for me to look at it online or easier for you guys, that's fine.
Can that be done in a PDF that could be gotten to the members here so they can,
We'll try to extract it in a way that
that's
you-
feasible?
you
That'd be
can see
helpful.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Helpful,
we'll,
thank you.
we'll give it a go. The other thing with this too is, you know, when you're moving people around, one of the original intent, or the one intent of this is to keep, you know, like if you look at Forest Township, that's one block of township. So you really want to, you know, keep people as close to you can as that square, instead of having people kind of out on the outskirts. You know, it just, from an election standpoint, from a clerk, it makes it incredibly difficult, but also just, you want to try to keep people as close as you can to, you know, the square. That doesn't mean it has to happen, but that's kind of the, you know, one of the goals of this, but that, I just want to put that out there. So when you look at like Forest or Westford, that's kind of a nice example. Dayton is another one that's kind of together, so.
They have to be contiguous too.
They do. So
Okay.
contiguous means they have to be together. You can't have islands in the middle. You know, you can't have an island of people in Forest Township that are in Sylvan and vice versa. So if you look at Bloom and Sylvan, you see the two green blocks there. That's considered contiguous because they're not, they're not broke up. There must be a few people or places in between there that make up that district, and realize that these things have morphed over the years. So the reason they look the way they do is just from changes from, decades literally before us. So we're, you're really just trying to work with the information you have. Yeah, I'll just.
Well, the other thing I was just going to point out first was whenever you go into a different township and take people from a different township, that's going to create a different ward for that township. And that's what townships don't want. Want to keep it down as much as possible. And that's what we'll do when we're finding this new plan, to keep the wards down as much as possible. So then this is the sheet that you have in front of you. But when I make a change on, well, let me see. Let me do a change here. I'm going to take, add some more, take from Bloom Township and add it to Forest Township. So all I have to do is click on it, and that it makes it part of Forest Township. And then the numbers change automatically down below here when that happens. And when I want to, hey, that looks pretty darn good, then I would lock that district so I don't mess with it anymore. And but I can unlock it because sometimes you do have to mess with it some more. So I can go around the whole county and just click.
Sure, go ahead. Is your mic on? Slide it.
So you're moving people to a different township or just a different supervisory district?
A different supervisory district. But in doing that, I mean, if that block we keep in Forest Township, that creates a new ward in Bloom Township for those 10 people.
Which makes more work for the town clerk.
Right.
Yeah.
In this case, more work for the town clerk in Bloom, correct? Because that's what the people would be voting for in Bloom, so they have to create a new ward in Bloom just for those people.
Right. So we try and keep it contiguous. We try and keep it compact. We have to be within the 5%.
So the false readings on there under contiguous, could you explain what that means?
Yeah, I called the LTSB about this today. So some of them are real and some of them are not.
Okay.
I was told today it was a bit of a programming issue and that you'll get false positives. So his suggestion for me was, once we get a plan, just Lynn and I will go through and literally follow the map at a magnified level to make sure there are no islands or anything in there. So the other thing Lynn and I talked about today was, once we get it to a point where, you guys are good with it, we'll just have the folks look at it with us and just confirm that there's, we're not missing any islands or whatever like that. Because we did on the demonstration, I don't know if it was this one or the first plan we just pulled up, we did fix it and fix the island, and the false reading was still there. So there's going to be some false positives. And when I asked him today, I said, now, are there any other, any of the whole chart there? Are there any other things we need to look for? And the other ones are just kind of, data points, but the one that matters is the deviation, because that's people. And we have to make sure I forget the rule. It's called something, but it's in the redistricting handbook, the vote rule. I forget what it's called. That, yes, thank you. So the false readings we'll take care of. They're just showing up for whatever reason that I'm not aware of. I'm not the programmer, so I don't know, but good observation.
All right, thank you.
So
Anything else?
that's what kind of happens with that. So then is you guys will, Lynn and I will move people around and get the numbers to a spot, per the resolution that was passed. Staff, which will be Lynn and I, will create these plans, give them to you folks, and then you can look at them and you will sign off on them. In terms of accessing the plan, that is because this is live, real data, those passwords and stuff will retain with myself as a county clerk and Lynn as LIO, Land Information Officer. So we will keep those and we will share this documents, but that's any questions about that? I mean, that's how this process will work. So our goal then on September 20th, we will present you with a tentative plan, or before then, on September 9th, whatever the day we picked, I don't have the schedule in front of me. We will present you with the plan that meets all the requirements that we need to be, and then it's we go from there. But that's how this works. We just continue to work our way around until all the deviations are within the range that they need to be. Dorothy? You can log in, but I'm a little hesitant to share this password with, you just, I don't want you to move stuff or anything because this is a working plan. So my initial response to that is because the resolution language said staff would draft these plans, then I would prefer that access be left to myself or Lynn, just not because I don't trust any of you, but just because this is a real live document. So basically we can print off the numbers there. We can print that chart off to give you those updated numbers. And like we said earlier, we'll try to extract as much of that stuff as possible. But before you approve anything, I mean, when we come to the meeting, we'll pull this up so you can all see it there too. And if you want to come see it like throughout the week, I come in and see me, either Lynn or I, and we can do that. But in terms of access, I don't want to speak for just me. I think maybe Lynn feels the same way, that I really don't want to give out passwords to this stuff just because of the nature of the material.
I
Mr.
feel
Chair,
that way also, Derek. I feel that way also. If you've got a live document that needs to be protected, and opening that up to committee members on this committee, that could be a nightmare if something's done incorrectly, and maybe that person wouldn't even realize what they've done. So keeping that document safe makes a lot of sense to me.
And I'm happy to sit with anybody to go over what we're doing, but I echo Bobby Ann's comment.
Sure. Sean?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so if I can just give a little bit of background on this as well. So we did write into the resolution that staff would be responsible for drawing the maps because we didn't want people on the committee to feel like you had to draw the maps. Also, 9 people drawing the map would be pretty challenging. So, but the purpose of one of the responsibilities of the committee, which is the next agenda item, is to come up with guidelines for staff. Now, some things are statutory, probably through state law or federal law, and Derek's been referring to a few of those things, but other things are sort of add-ons, and I can get a little more into that in the next agenda item, but I just wanted to mention that as far as roles go, that's why it was written into the resolution, just to make sure that the committee had its role and staff had its role, and we're still reviewing what they produce and giving our feedback to them on it. It's not just a stamp of approval, although it might be. That's where we'll be reviewing it and seeing where the guidelines followed. What do we think of the maps that they've come up with? So,
Great, thank you. Other comments, other questions?
Just have a comment that now that I understand that, I don't really need to see this until you have something to show us, and I'm gonna trust that, I'm gonna have more than 10 minutes to look at it, obviously, and be able to think it through and do my job appropriately as committee member, so I'm good.
Well, we can send out PDFs of each village, so you do have a close-in shot or township. So we can do that. Or like Derek said, you can come in anytime, maybe call first. I'm sure I'm around, but, and look over my shoulder and look at it.
Thanks for the offer, but I'm just gonna let you. I don't need to. Thank you for the offer.
Well, I've actually met you know, if we got somewhat of a plan we're gonna present, if you wanna come in earlier and take a look at it, you can do that.
Anything else on this topic, Derek or Lynn? Okay, so the topic is to discussion and possible action of the redistricting process. Is there any action the committee wants to take at this point, or do we want to just leave this at discussion right now as we move forward? Hearing no action motions, I'm going to take it that was just discussion at this point, and we will take more formal action later. Moving on to item 6, discussion and possible action on the adoption of redistricting guidelines. Wow, that came out tough. Sean, you had some comments on this.
Yeah, so I prepared some materials. I did some research this morning, and I've got 3 different documents that I emailed out to folks earlier today, and this is also on the county's redistricting website. So if you don't have your email, you can go to the website and review these at any time. I don't have the ability to share my screen, so I'll just verbally illustrate what I'm talking about right now, and then if anyone has questions about how to find the documents, just let me know. But so here, I think we do need to take some action today to establish redistricting guidelines, but the committee needs to determine what those guidelines are. And the resolution that the county board adopted earlier this month on the timetable, this is step 2 of the process that the county board adopted. And that this has to be done at this meeting because these 2 need to get to work drawing maps. So I'm going to walk through some different things I found in different resources, and then I think it'd be great to hear what other people think. I can give my opinion, but I'm just going to report on what I found for this initial phase. So the Wisconsin Counties Association, they publish a redistricting handbook that Derek sent out to everybody, I think a couple days ago, and they give the following guidance for this step of the process. It says the redistricting committee is responsible for establishing the principles that will guide the redistricting process. The primary focus of the consultant, or in this case it's staff, will be on establishing a redistricting plan that focuses on substantially equal, contiguous, and compact districts. The redistricting committee should determine the extent to which other traditional concepts of redistricting will be reflected in the plan, including preservation of political subdivisions, communities of interest, and cores of prior districts, protection of incumbent interests, and consideration of minority interests when appropriate. Additional considerations include municipal ward size restrictions, development of aldermanic districts, and other municipal redistricting concerns. The redistricting committee will need to guide staff in the development of plans to ensure that the guidelines chosen by the redistricting committee will be reflected in the plan. So I pulled from 3 different sources. The first was Iowa. Iowa's often, this is kind of where the controversy that we hear in the news sometimes comes out. So I had heard about Iowa in the news as a political subdivision that has drawn maps in a fair and nonpartisan way. So the first attachment, so the second document that I shared with folks, is called the Legislative Guide to Redistricting in Iowa. So it's not quite an apples to apples comparison because we're talking about county supervisory districts, whereas they're talking about state assembly, state senate, and U.S. House of Representative line drawing. But I think they report on quite a few guidelines that have been adopted through state law in Iowa that I think could be applicable here. So I'll walk through what those are. They call them factors, but there are 4 of them that would apply to us. The first is respect for political subdivision, and they have 2 major points. And by the way, in the document that I attached, I highlighted where I pulled this language. So if you want to look at the context, you can look at it. But I just pulled the language verbatim from what they published in their guidebook. It says the number of municipalities divided among more than one district in a redistricting plan shall be as small as possible. So in our case, that would be we have 16 townships, 5 villages, 1 city, so that's 22 municipalities. So dividing as few of those up into different pieces as possible. The lesser number would be better, the more number would be worse under their guidelines. Then the second piece of that is when a choice exists as to dividing municipalities, the most populous municipality shall be divided first. I haven't thought through that or why that is, but that's one important point, I think. 2, contiguousness. I don't know if I'm saying that right either, but districts shall be composed of convenient, contiguous territory. And the second point under this guideline is a district which includes areas which meet only at the points of adjoining corners is not contiguous. Keep in mind, this is an Iowa state law. I'm not sure whether it's a federal or a state issue. How did we get to a point where we have one of those districts at least? We might have more than one. But in Iowa, that's how they've defined contiguous. The third guideline is compactness. They say compact districts are those which are square, rectangular, or hexagonal in shape, and not irregularly shaped to the extent permitted by natural or political boundaries. And I'm sure here, our roads being as curvy as they are, that's going to be probably something, we can't have as straight as districts as Iowa can because most of their roads are on a grid. The compactness of a district based on the length width measure is the greatest when the length and the width of a district are equal. And I noticed there was something, I think one of those factors somewhere in that chart that you all shared, there may have been something about compactness or contiguousness, and they've come up with a number for it. So that was great to see. I just noticed that when you were sharing that. The compactness of a district based on the perimeter measure is greatest when the distance needed to traverse the boundary or basically go along the boundary is as short as possible. So that's where if you have a really long skinny district, I think that's where your boundary gets way longer than if you just have a more square or rectangular district. And then the fourth guideline they have is improper considerations. And they say data concerning the addresses of incumbents, the political affiliation of registered voters, which we don't have that here, previous election results, which we would have in Wisconsin, of course, and demographic data other than population head counts not otherwise required by federal law are not to be considered or used in establishing districts. And I think they insert that because I think race sometimes is a federal law consideration that is required. And then, so that's the first example. The second example is Dane County. I searched a bunch of counties. This was the only county I could find that had guidelines. And they published this ordinance back in 2016. They created this independent commission. There they have no county board supervisors on their independent commission. It's all citizens. And there they have 6 different, they call them criteria, but guidelines. I don't think I'm going to read through all of those. Some of these are a mix of different laws and rules, and some of this is like the incumbency thing isn't a law or a rule, but they have adopted that in Wisconsin to say districts shall not be drawn with regard to incumbency or where the current county board supervisors live. And then the last one, I'd read a news article. It was in the Wisconsin State Journal in 2020. It was actually an opinion piece. It wasn't a news article. Dale Schultz, our former state senator from Richland Center, and Tim Cullen, the Republican-Democrat duo who have put on a road show about gerrymandering, they advocated in this opinion piece for 4 redistricting criteria, which we could call guidelines too. This is probably, I liked, in a sense, it was kind of nice because it's a little easier to digest, but it was refrain from using previous election results or any political demographic data in making the maps, respect political subdivisions and keep cities and counties intact to the fullest extent possible, which in our case would be townships, villages, and cities. And the third one was make districts contiguous and compact and not irregularly shaped. And the fourth one was never take into consideration the addresses of incumbents. So those were the 3 sources I found. I did, Susie from the Village of Boaz I know you sent me an email after you saw this. You found something else in another resource. I thought that might be helpful.
I looked at the Wisconsin Legislative Reference Bureau redistricting guide, and, for contiguity of, let's see. Liked how they worded it. A district's contiguity, excuse me, may be tested by whether it is possible to travel to all parts of a district without crossing district lines. I thought that was an interesting way to put it. It does definitely present a problem in District Two. You know, if that language was to be used, but it is an interesting way to thought it.
So
Hello, I
that's
lost
all,
connection.
that's all I had.
There's a question online, someone. Okay, all right. So, in setting the guidelines, we are setting the direction that we're requesting to have the boundaries looked at. Those may or may not be completely feasible, depending upon how the numbers sort out. But it is up to this committee to set some guidelines as we wish. What is this committee's wish? Do any of these guidelines in particular stand out that you would want to mention? I think we should have some guidelines that we should be letting the electors know and the county know, community know that these are the guidelines that we use. Yes. John?
I agree.
Okay. Other thoughts? Anything else you would want to add to this that would be unique for Richland County that you feel should be looked at?
Towns that are split on the or has their own ward. So the part of Viola that's in Richland County, the ward, separate from the rest of Forest Township. And the same with Casanova.
And again, because this is just for the supervisory districts for the board, it'd just be the people in Richland County voting in Richland County, whether we are in Viola, you have to be on. I forget what the road is that cuts through there right on the line. I forget what that road is in Viola. Other questions? Anything else you would like to add to these?
I just wanted to say that I think that was kind of my initial reaction when I found Dale Schultz and Tim Colin's ideas at the very end of my research this morning. It was easier to understand. I did think that, like, Iowa's model or definition of contiguous probably put a little more meat on the bone than what they said, and I like that, but I don't think that we necessarily need to adopt it. It's, we've been talking about it, today. It's already kind of out there. The only thing I think we just need to change is we just need to, in number 2, we would need to strike cities and counties and replace that with townships, villages, and I don't know if we say cities or city, because we only have one city in Richland County. So that's the only thing I would suggest is replacing that.
So your change to item 2 would be respect political subdivisions and keep cities, or what would you say, to keep cities, towns, villages, and
maybe you could say that, and that'd be a little easier.
right, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
So in this case, number 2 would say respect political subdivisions and keep municipalities intact to the fullest extent possible. Is that clarification? Okay. Any other direction on this or any other thoughts on this?
Actually have a question. This is Susie, if I have to be saying so, because we have people. But, Lynn and Derek, given the work that you have done so far, have you noticed anything else that should be noticed here in the list? Anything that should be added in the list based on what you've seen already with the initial work you've been doing?
I haven't seen anything, most of what we're talking about right now, we already take into consideration.
So I'm going to look for a motion on this language taken from this document with the change under 2 to report political subdivisions and keep municipalities intact to the fullest extent possible. So I'll be looking for a motion to that language. Dorothy? Thank you, Dorothy. Looking for a second. Cosgrove, second. So any further discussion on this? Yes, please. Yes, Aaron.
Absolutely not.
Okay. You're very welcome. I love the definite answer. Thank you. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. We've had discussion. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to adopt this guidelines, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sign. All right, that is adopted then. Thank you very much. Moving on then to anything else with discussion, possible action and adoption of redistricting guidelines. Any other discussion on that? Any other topics to bring up? Hearing none, moving on. Moving on to item 7, discussion and possible action of the tentative plan.
So I had that on there as an item. We've kind of already talked about it in this schedule. So Lynn and I will go back now that we have some guidelines to follow. We will draft a tentative plan that we will share with all of you at our next meeting, which again, we've kind of went over some of this. So on September 9th, we'll have our second meeting. I propose 5 p.m., same place, same time here. And we will present you with what we have thus far in terms of a plan. And I don't know as though there's much else to say about that. I put it on here because, again, I wanted to make sure that we knew what was going on, and also the date for the tentative plan, the final adoption date, we've already kind of discussed when we approved this proposed timeline, which has that we will have our public hearing on September 20th to adopt that tentative plan. So that's what Lynn and I will do once we leave this meeting tonight, is work on the tentative plan to share with you when we meet again. So I don't think there's any other action on it because we did it with a proposed guideline there. But
I agree. And I hope you guys go home tonight and not work on that directly after the meeting tonight. But
I don't know.
if you do, okay. All right. Moving on then, item 8, discussion and possible action on establishment of future meeting dates. I think we've discussed that already. Our next meeting date, September 9th. What day of the week is that? Thursday, Thursday. So our next meeting date, again, it's really tight. If you have any conflicts, please let us know, but we're going to try and stick to the schedule. September 9th, 5 p.m., the county boardroom, and it'll also be available WebEx. Any questions with that?
Mr. Chair, I have one question. So I'm wondering, for the public hearing, can we discuss the time? Maybe 5 p.m. is the right time for a public hearing. I'm not sure, but I think we should at least discuss that. And I don't know that we would get that many people from the public, but I think it's probably important to
So
discuss
September
what's the
20th,
best time for the public to come to a public hearing.
September 20th public hearing? Okay. Good question. So looking at the September 20th, which would be the public hearing, what time should we discuss you think would be best for a public hearing at that point? Or should we do more than one in a day? A morning and an afternoon or evening or something?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Historically, there was one meeting, and when I looked at the one that was held 10 years ago, it was at 6 p.m. I do think, I'm open with the time, whatever works for, whatever you guys think, but that's what it was at the last one. So.
I'm thinking that one thing about 6 PM is that any of the clerks who are working during the day, I would think that they would be the most interested out of anybody to show up and see what's going on in their municipalities. So I would want to avoid like a 10 in the morning for that reason.
6
I
p.m.
agree with
think-
that.
Very good, thank you. 6 p.m. makes sense. See a lot of head nods. So tentatively hold it at work at 6 p.m. I don't think we need a motion on that because we have another meeting coming up prior to that. If there's any further topics or discussions we have to deal with. Okay.
The
notice has to go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
we-
I'm sorry. Correct.
Right, for the public hearing,
You're
if
right.
we're good with September 20th at 6 p.m., that's what I need to send to the paper tomorrow.
So I would like a motion on that. I'd like this group to take responsibility on that. So I'm looking for a motion, September 20th, public hearing, 6 p.m. So Derek has direction. John, will most give me a motion. I'm looking for a second. 2 seconds.
I'll second it.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Same sign. All right. September 20th, 6 p.m. public hearing date. Derek, does that cover what you need?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on discussion of possible action, establishment of future meeting dates?
Mr. Chair, I just asked that. I'm very flexible on the time as far as 5 p.m. works fine for me, but I think we just need to check with the whole committee to see if that's a good or a bad time and do what's best for the most number of people. So.
Well, the committee's here. Look at your calendars. This is a tight frame. We gotta look at it. We gotta move. So any other discussion on committee members here? There's always the WebEx, so tight schedule. Not to neglect IT. Work okay for you?
Thursday nights.
Okay.
Thursday nights.
I don't have another good answer for you right now, Barb.
What about Wednesday? Because Derek said we could do September 8th. But that's why I'm.
A day earlier would be better than a day later. Everybody look at your calendars, September 8th. Wednesday, September 8th.
That wouldn't work for me, Derek. I have a regular town board meeting on September 8th at 6 o'clock.
Was that fair week too?
We can do it.
I'm sorry to hear some conflict on the Wednesday, so
We have highway department that night
no, then yeah. Thursday it is, Thursday the 6th. I'm
Ninth.
sorry, Thursday the 9th at 5. Jeez. Got too many notes on here. All right, the next meeting date, Thursday, September 9th at 5 p.m. County Boardroom, and also WebEx. All right, moving on to item number 9. Anything else on future dates? Any other questions on that? I would encourage people to come to the public meeting. I would encourage these members to be there because you're the ones setting the precedent, and I think it's important for the public to see who is here, why we made the decisions, and how those decisions are made. So I would greatly appreciate having you there. Okay.
And in my mind, I'd like to hear how it affects somebody. If something-
Absolutely. Okay, moving on, item number 9, ideas for future agenda items. Yes.
I don't know if this is an agenda item, but looking forward to how this is going quite quickly. I don't know if there needs to be anything on there as far as support for clerks to make sure that they understand what they need to be doing when it goes back to them so that everything stays in line with them getting it back to us on time so that we can finish.
So I will, after once the tentative plan is adopted, I will be sending all municipal clerks an email saying, heads up, the plan's been adopted. Here's what you need to do. And I will provide you with as many resources as possible, including past resolutions or ordinances, if you have to make any ward changes that have occurred, since the last one. So, I will help you as much as I can and point you in the directions like the WTA and stuff like that. So I'll help as much as I can.
Any other questions for future agenda items? Hearing none, moving on to number 10, adjournment. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. We should have done introductions. Let's go around the table prior to adjournment. Lynn, do you want to start?
I'm Lynn Newkirk. I'm the GIS specialist for Richland County.
Chad Cosgrove, District 14, County Board Supervisor.
Sean Murphy Lopez, District 2 County Board Supervisor.
Susie Howry, I'm the clerk treasurer for the Village of Boaz and the clerk representative for villages.
Aaron Joyce, the city clerk treasurer for the city of Richland Center.
Alan Lenz, citizen. Mike Wendell, Corporation Counsel.
Bob Frank, County Board representation.
Dorothy Thompson, citizen representative.
All right. Dorothy, thank you for that. I should have done that earlier. So, anything else? Looking for a motion to adjourn then. Dorothy, thank you. Looking for a second? All right. So on second, all in favor, please say aye. Thank you very much.
Aye.